video we're going to talk about competitions and more particularly the rules of competitions. By the very nature of a competition, the rules are absolutely critical to the whole event, and that's what makes the level playing field, because everyone is fishing to those same rules. So what's important is that you have that clear understanding of what those rules are and how it applies. And today we're going to use the example of the Youth International and using the international rules that applies to Loch style fishing. So, Scott, a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Some of the key rules, what do you think the ones that you would pick up and highlight as major?
Obviously every rule is important, Stewie, but the major rule to look at first is fly size.
Yep.
Everyone can buy a gauge at a local tackle shop. Draycott has a lodge here that sells the hook gauge.
Yep.
The hook gauge itself is 5/8 of an inch,
yep.
and the total fly size is 15/16.
So that's less than an inch total.
Less than an inch, yeah. It's not very big. When you consider your small still water flies that you're probably using are quite large in many cases. So the best thing to do when you're practicing for all these competitions is just fish at national fly size.
Okay.
So when you come to fish the competitions, you're confident with them flies.
So for a lot of guys that perhaps haven't fished competitions, that's probably a big change for them, making sure the flies.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, does that make the flies different in any shape or form because of the size?
They tend to, obviously they're smaller,
yeah.
So you've got to look at the patterns you use, if you want to incorporate movement, how you do that in a smaller fly.
Yeah.
But they're also, you do fish a lot of flies in still waters that you'd fish in a big lake, for example, like Draycott. Your buzzers and your nymphs, all of them would be included in your 15/16 rule.
And when you mentioned 5/8 of an inch, that's a bit old-fashioned.
Yeah.
What does that generally mean for hook size?
Generalised, that would be a sort of a Camazan B175 size 10.
Size 10 hook, yeah.
Size 10, yeah.
And if my hook was slightly bigger than that, wasn't in the gauge, what would that mean?
Well, it would be an illegal hook. You could sort of bend the eye, but as long as it fits in that 5/8 of an inch, anything bigger is totally illegal.
And that would mean if I breach that rule, I would be disqualified.
Yeah.
So it's really important.
Yeah, in a team event, if you're disqualified, that your bag weight can make the big difference between winning a gold medal and coming last, for example. So you don't want to have that on your back.
So even on the example of just the fly size and the hook size, that can be critical to everything you do.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
it's really important to make sure your fly box has proper competition legal flies.
Yeah.
Any other top tips on the rules or things to be aware of?
Well, just be aware of when we fish a competition in the international format, we fish against England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales, 4 teams that are involved. You be in a boat with another country. Each person gets 2 hours control of the boat.
Right.
So if you want to go to one part of the lake for 2 hours, you're perfectly within that rights too.
So how does that work? Control of the boat, for example. Does that mean I've got the engine if I'm in control?
Yeah. Well, you tend to work it out between you. If you desperately want the engine, you're within the rights to take it. There is a boatman involved as well, which will be sat in the boat with you, and he's sort of your official. He should be able to look after you guys and make sure you're both following the rules.
So in reality, over that 8-hour competition or the length period, 2 hours, and that could change each 2 hours. So
every 2 hours,
So you could have control, and then 2 hours after I could take. That doesn't necessarily mean that I would have to then swap and go on the engine. It just means that you'd follow my direction where I wanted to go. Okay. So on that, it probably makes sense for 2 anglers fishing together to actually come up with a plan that suits them both, rather than.
What you don't want to do is if you're fishing a big reservoir like Grafton, for example, if you want to be at one side of the lake at the dam and your boat partner wants to be the other side of the lake, it's Savages, for example. It's a half an hour up and down, so you waste a lot of time during your driving back and forward. So if you can work out a plan between you to cover both of them spots, and you save a lot of time in the process.
And regarding numbers of flies, I mean, obviously depending on your ability. I know some anglers are happy fishing 1 or 2.
The rule states you can have 4 hook points.
Okay.
So that would be 4 single hooks, or 2 doubles, or 2 singles and a double. As long as you've got 4 hook points on there, you're perfectly fine.
And sometimes I understand on competition rules that the international rules may say one thing, but then fishery rules can take precedence. So
you've got things out of bounds areas. Like Draycott here, we've got a sailing club. Grafton is a sailing club as well. At Rutland, you've got nature reserves at the top of the arms. So there's all these little things you've got to be wary of before you go out.
So again, that preparation before you go out, understanding the rules, knowing where the pitfalls are, but at the same time understand the areas you can't fish.
Exactly.
Is a really big help. It goes back to our preparation.
Again, breach of those rules would end up in disqualification.
So in essence, all of those rules and all the details. We're not going to go through them all today, but there is a PDF you'll be able to download which lists all the rules, and you need to understand them really clearly, because a breach of any of those rules will simply mean disqualification.